I can call the meeting to order. Nope, it's still only 6:59. I'll wait till 7.
Yeah, give it a second for this live stream to go.
Okay.
Hit it, Dennis. All right, we're live.
Okay, I want to call to order this regular meeting of the Waynesboro Planning Commission for Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. And can someone move to adopt our agenda? Have you all had a chance to look at it?
I so move.
I'll second.
Everyone in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
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 Okay, everyone who's not in favor of adopting the agenda? Okay, the agenda is adopted. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Someone want to move to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, everyone in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
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 Everyone not in favor? Minutes are approved.
Shannon, and that is the minutes of
August 18th.
2020 and September 22,
Yes.
2020.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes. Okay, do we have any items for public comment? I don't think we have any phone calls in or anything.
Oh, let me just really quickly lay out the number,
Okay,
just so we have it later. I don't think we're gonna have anyone since we're not dealing with anything that affects specific people's property, but let me just get
okay.
that ready. So if you are listening or watching the live stream and you would like to make a public comment, you can do so by dialing 929-205-6099 and then entering the meeting ID, which is 870-1475-6554. I'm going to put that meeting ID and number up screen for just a second here. Zoom go. So we have that for the public hearing as well. So again, you can dial 929-205-6099 and then enter the meeting ID. And I will see you appear and admit you to the meeting. All right.
Okay, so then I think it is time to move on to the public hearing on amending the city code chapter 98, the zoning ordinance, to add a new zone tentatively designated as the MXB mixed business zone, which I like the name.
Mm-hmm.
And
All right.
we've talked about this a lot already.
We have.
So do we have any other comments? Or I mean, it's this time for comments, right? Yes.
Yeah, I presented at the city council meeting last week and gave them kind of a heads up on this. So hopefully if folks are paying attention, they looked and saw that presentation. And we have talked about it a lot. So unless the planning commissioners would like me to represent any part of it, I can do that, but I don't want to belabor the point.
Does any commissioner have any
You did a
questions?
fine job in front of council.
Thanks. I did get a couple of potential changes from Mr. Airy. He had mentioned, and I think both of them made sense, and I wanted to bring them up to you. One of them is on the zone description. At the end, it says this zone is not intended to be used in new subdivisions. And really, that's more language that we would put in a comprehensive plan, you know, what it generally is intended for. In terms of the actual code, you know, the legally enforceable zoning code, that's really not the kind of language that we should have in there. It should be either this shall not be used in new subdivisions, or just leave it out. And that'll just be something that we're aware of, but that's not the purpose. So
And just to follow up with that, Luke and I talked about it, and I brought that up, that if we don't want new subdivisions to be able to do it, then we should put shall not apply to new subdivisions, that sort of language. But if we want to leave that open, that's what Luke got back to me, then either be silent or leave this language in. This language does not preclude this zone being used in new subdivisions, but it does indicate that we kind of frown on it. And you know, I can go either way on it. But that was our basic discussion. And I think Luke came back, just be silent on it. And that makes sense if that's what everybody wants to do. Otherwise, if we only want it for this area, then we should have language that says new subdivisions cannot have it. And Luke, you and I talked about it. Do you see a possibility that this might be a good thing for the city with a new subdivision?
I think we should leave the option available.
Yeah.
And also, it's just a little bit odd language to say what zones can or can't be used where. You know, that really is something that's determined by the rezonings and councils and stuff. So it would be strange to think, you know, can a council override that? Because clearly they would be able to, but I would just leave it out.
I agree.
I agree.
Mr. Airy mentioned one other thing. You made me think. I noted in the staff report that generally the survey respondents were not thrilled about used car sales, but that's still in our use table as permitted. And I wonder if that should be conditional use permit the way it is in LB, or if that's the use that we do want to allow. I think originally my thought process had been that that's the use that doesn't really involve building anything. So if there is just a vacant lot, sometimes people can put a used car sales place there, but also that's not really the intent of the zone. It's not
I say
really
we make
something
it by conditional use permit.
I agree with that.
I'll agree with that.
Mm.
I think sort of following the heart of what we're going after, what you said makes sense.
Did anyone else look at the use table and have other changes that they wanted to suggest before we recommend the text amendment?
I looked at it, but I didn't see any changes.
I didn't see anything glaring. I think it all made sense.
I agree. I looked at it and I think what we have is good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I open the public hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me get my paper straight here. Okay, I'm gonna open the public hearing for the amending the city code chapter 98 zone ordinance to add a new zone tentatively designated the MXB mixed business zone.
If you would like to call in and speak for the public hearing, please dial the number on the screen there, 929-205-6099, and then enter the meeting ID 870-1475-6554, and we'll admit you to the meeting. And while we're waiting on that, I know I mentioned the name. This isn't a very exciting name, but I was going through a lot of the names, words that we threw out last time, like opportunity or enterprise or sort of revitalization. They're sort of aspirational names that we tend to sort of reserve those words for like our economic zones. So we have like the opportunity zone and enterprise zones and things like that. And so I felt like it was the zoning districts are all sort of purely descriptive. So I was trying to come up with something that matched our current naming conventions a little bit, but still open to changing it if people have other strong feelings.
You know, though, Luke, mixed business is what we're trying to do in that area. And that might be, I think that's a good name for this particular zone. And it might, you know, help catch the eye of someone who does have a small business rather than redevelopment zone or something like that.
I think it makes it feel like a more general that does leave it open for a variety of businesses. And I like it. Good job, Luke.
It sort of matches our naming convention in that we have an RMX, residential mix district, and so this could be business mix. And all of our commercial zones are something B. They're HB, highway business, LB, local business, CB, central business. So I thought NXB, mixed business.
Great.
So it would line up well. I don't
MXB
have
just
any-
sounds cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't have anyone calling, Shannon. I feel
Okay,
like
so we can close the public hearing, right? That's what I did, yes. Closing the public hearing. Now, can we make a motion? Someone make a motion to amend the city code, chapter 98 ordinance to add, or zoning ordinance. That's my short term for zordinance. Zoning ordinance to add a new zone tentatively designated as the MXB mixed business zone.
I'll make that motion that we make a recommendation to the city council to adopt the proposed MXB mixed business zone with the one change, and that is to section 98.2.6.2, deleting the last sentence referring to the zone being the not intended language in the zone. Just delete that sentence.
and the use car sales.
Right.
Yeah.
Change it to
Yes.
conditional use permit.
I'll add that to what I'm suggesting, or to the motion.
Okay, someone want to second it?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor on recommending amending the city code chapters 98 zoning ordinance to add new zone tentatively designated the MXB mixed business zone with Steve's recommended changes, say aye.
Aye.
Everyone not in favor? So the motion carries. And then we have another public hearing on amending city code chapter 98 zoning ordinance articles 5 and 6 signs and 9.3 enforcement procedure and remedies. So did we all read this?
Yes.
Yes.
Thoughts? Anyone have thoughts?
I'm going to turn this one over to Kira to present,
Okay.
just for the benefit of the public here.
Yes, for the benefit of the public. This zoning text amendment is to amend Articles 5.6 and 9.3 of our zoning ordinance. And the request comes about because our legal counsel determined that these sections are unconstitutional under a 2015 Supreme Court case. And that makes it so that if our sign ordinance was challenged, it would not be enforceable. So we are amending it. And just a little background about the case that makes our sign ordinance unconstitutional. It's the Reed v. Town of Gilbert. In Gilbert, Arizona, a sign ordinance was adopted in 2005. And a few years later, the Good News Community Church placed different signs around town and announcing the time of their church meetings. Sorry, my dog was making a noise and I was worried he was chewing on something. So they placed signs around town announcing the meeting, and an advisory notice was given to them that they're violating the sign code. The sign code restricts the size, number, duration, and location of certain types of signs. And the sign that the church had placed is under the temporary directional signs related to a qualifying event. And there are stricter limitations placed on that than ideological signs or political signs in the sign code. And so the Good News Community Church sued, claiming that there was a violation of the free speech clause in the First Amendment and the equal protections clause of the 14th Amendment. So they sue, it's taken to the district court. They found that the sign code of the town of Gilbert was constitutional. Reed appealed, and it went to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Thank you. And they affirmed the ruling of the district courts, but Reed then took it to the Supreme Court, who reversed that. They found that the sign code's provisions were content-based regulations of speech. So that made it, I'm no like law person. I was learning a lot as I was looking over this whole case and felt grateful that I chose to go into what I chose to go into and not into law. Much respect, Mr. Airy. But anyway, the case, it could not survive strict scrutiny, which applies different. It meant that the restrictions applied differently depending on the message of the sign, and that's what was happening in this town. Was they found that certain signs, so say like the ideological or the political signs, they had certain restrictions, and the religious signs had different restrictions, which made it content-based. And content-based means that it targets the speech because of the ideas or the messages that are expressed. And as our legal counsel went over our sign ordinance, there are many instances where it is content-based, and I can show you some of the examples of that. I won't go over all of them. There's a lot of changes that are being made, and hopefully you all took a look at them. We also had Laura Martin, our zoning administrator, look through. But here's just an example of what we're talking about. Let's see. So here's a good one. So identification signs and there's political signs. These are taken out and just placed under minor signs instead. And so it was restricting like political signs. It had different standards than the identification signs, or promotional signs. That was taken out and just kind of all lumped into a minor sign, or I can't remember the other, oh yeah, governmental signs. So they're kind of generalized a little bit more, and rather than placing size or duration limits on some signs but not others, they're kind of all put into one lump, and it's not based on the content of the sign. So there's some examples. Taking out any kind of wording that makes our sign ordinance content-based. And so these changes of 5.6 prompted changes to how it's enforced. And let's see, that's right here. Let me make this bigger. Oh, wow. And a lot of this phrasing is just, oh boy, can't get the size right. So the enforcement penalties, it looks like they took out a lot, but they just kind of rephrased it some, made the penalties, before they were a little bit more ambiguous, have like different range of penalties. And now there's a penalty for the first notice and then subsequent notices after that, and each day that's found. Phrasing from the procedure was taken out and edited some. No big changes. Like, it looks like a lot of changes, but when you look closely, and maybe it's just because I don't understand it all that well, but it didn't seem like there was huge changes to this. It's just the way things are, how it works with the content-based changes. So our legal counsel reviewed this. We've looked through it, and as I mentioned, the zoning administrator looked through it, and we recommend that the Planning Commission initiate this text amendment to the zoning ordinance. Are there any questions? I might be able to answer them.
Yes, Kira. I
I
would have a
knew
question.
your question.
Could you scroll up so people can see section 98-5-6-7, illumination?
Illumination.
You've got it right at the top there.
Yep.
Look, subsection C, they've deleted sign lighting shall not be detrimental to adjacent residential properties. I don't see how that relates to content. And of course, we've had a couple of instances lately involving lighted signs. In one case, it was a residential area, that was a church. And the other case was the library, and that was questionable residential area. And I wonder, Luke and I spoke about this, and I wonder if we might want to go back to council, assuming the Planning Commission wants to keep that provision in place in its recommendation to the city council, or to the city council, but go back to the attorneys and inquire as to why that was deleted. Now, Luke, you may have had a chance to do some of that today.
Yeah, I did pass this question along to the attorneys, and I got a response from City Attorney Melissa Michelson. She says that to be constitutional and enforceable, the illumination has to be based on an objective standard that can be proved, like lumens. And we currently don't have equipment over in the Building and Zoning Office to measure that. If the Planning Commission wanted something better than the existing language, she provided a line that she said could work. And it's in the case of indirect lighting, the beam width shall not be wider than that reasonably needed to light the sign and aim to minimize glare and light trespass. But she felt that it was fairly well addressed by section E there, where it says within 200 feet of offsite residential zones or uses, et cetera there. She, like I said, she's passed me some language that we could add here in place of C if the Planning Commission would like that, just to make sure that.
So is she saying that that this is redundant, that it's already addressed in, somewhere else here?
She felt like that paragraph right there did a pretty good job of addressing it, but that's not her opinion as an attorney. That's more our purview to say whether that's sufficient. But she did provide us with some language that we could add if we felt it was not sufficient. I will. I don't know if Kira, maybe you can let me share my screen and I'll show this email.
I guess I could have pulled up the email too, but you've got it. I have a big screen, so this is probably showing up really small, but in the case of indirect lighting, the beam width shall not be wider than that reasonably needed to light the sign and aim to minimize glare and light trespass. So if folks would like to add that line instead of C, we can do that.
Yeah.
When she's talking about indirect lighting and the beams, I'm assuming that it's like a floodlight hardwired in the ground, shining up on the sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what it's referring to.
From the sign itself.
Right, that should be addressed in that section E there.
Okay.
It's one of those things where before it just was like it can't be obnoxious to neighboring residences, which is very subjective. We can't really measure that to enforce it.
So light trespass is the same as being detrimental to the. I mean,
it's more specific. It gives something about the beam width being.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a little bit vague, but it's more enforceable than detrimental. So that was kind of her point there.
And light trespass is a legal term, like somebody trespassing on your property.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was bright enough, I think this is Shannon's argument, which I understand went away. But if it's bright enough, then there may be some neighbors who do complain about it.
Yeah.
And what it may cause us to do is to get some specifics about the light and check with the neighbors around and see if there's any problem. Although I guess you wouldn't know until the lights were in place.
Do you know if there's any city code that addresses the light? I mean, the light as a nuisance. I mean, there's noise nuisance, and is anybody familiar enough with that? I mean, if somebody wanted to complain, what leg would they have to stand on? I mean, light trespass. That's pretty general.
Well, and it would have to be pretty extensive, the light trespass. I guess if somebody had a rotating strobe, a car dealership came in and did that, and it's flashing through. But I know it was an issue that we had before, and had some concern about it. In, as I say, two things, and that's why I raised that with Luke.
And to answer your question, Sarah, if it's any kind of structural light, the kinds of things that you would need some kind of building permit to install, we have pretty extensive regulations about those, and they have to be pointed downwards and so forth. If somebody just went to Lowe's and bought a big light and shown it on your house, I'm not totally sure about that. I want to say there's something in the property maintenance code about that, but I would have to check.
Mhm. I guess you just want something to people to be able to point to as a, to back them up, to see that they, that there's some kind of specific measurements or specific, I mean, what is detriment? I mean, how do you measure that the light is trespassing or that it's a detriment? It could be
I think that's what Luke said about the lumens.
Mhm.
For instance, with noise, that was a question raised with cases involving noise pollution. And I remember there was a case out of Virginia Beach, and the police did have instruments to measure. I think the Virginia Beach statute said if it's at this decibel level with so many feet from the source of the noise, and I think it was a nightclub or something like that.
Yeah.
And the police had the instruments that could measure the decibel level at that distance.
Yeah.
And I think what Luke is telling us, I'm sure there are things that will allow you to measure lumens like that at a certain distance, but we just don't have those right now.
Yes, you can measure the light lumens. Where they come into question is mainly around observatories like McCormick, the one up there on Fan Mountain. Due to those being an observatory, they are ordinances in the city of Charlottesville and with the University of Virginia regarding light pollution, that certain lights have to be a certain lumens and they have to face in a certain direction due to those two structures.
I mean, then maybe it would be good to have something in place for this mixed business zone already established as far as, the approved lighting.
Do we want to just use the language that Melissa Michelson sent me to substitute for that C there?
I see no reason not to. I mean, at least it gives you a starting point. It gives the city opportunity to go measure. Most architectural and lighting design firms, the lumen meters aren't that much. So I'm not sure the enforcement department could go pick one up. Depending on how sensitive you get, you're only talking a couple $100. But it gives you
I don't know that they've really had incidents yet where they've needed to use them.
But
so
it gives you a place to start and
mention.
gives an individual homeowner that's being affected somewhere to start.
Well, the other thing that does, Bobby, if we have that additional language that the attorney's suggesting, and then we do get the necessary meter, we can think about amending that language, and I guess I'm talking to the city council here, as to what we might want to use to become very specific about lumens at certain distances and things like that.
Yeah.
I think from staff's perspective, it's one of those things that we'll press when there's an incident. You know, I think generally our code's sufficient for what we deal with these days. But if we have somebody really press the point, we'll probably have to bring you all a lumen numbers and purchase lumen equipment and stuff. So.
All right. Hey, I've got a question about, where did we go here? Temporary signs. You know, these open signs along the highway, businesses are trying to show that they're open and people can come in for business.
Are you reading my mind, Bobby? Because that was going to be my question.
Well, I'm reading here that, you know, that you can get a permit for these signs, 2 per year, renews every 6 months, it looks like. But it says the sign shall not be displayed for more than 30 consecutive days. How many consecutive days does it have to be taken down before it can be displayed again?
Display 130 consecutive days. I assume that you could theoretically do 60 consecutive days because it doesn't say anything opposing that. It just says that two.
Right below it says each business may be issued 2 sign permits for a temporary sign within a 12-month period.
So you could do 60 days, but no more.
Mhm.
If they wanted to burn through both of theirs in a year. I mean, it's up to Laura to interpret that, but I don't see anything.
Well, and the
Otherwise,
reason I'm saying you see a lot of these around town, which I have no problem with. But Zeus put one up the other day, and somebody made a complaint that had been up for more than 30 days. And they got a phone call that they had to take it down, but yet we see these signs all over town. I don't know how it's enforced or if it's even enforceable.
What is the objection to having it more than 30 days?
I don't see an objection.
I don't either. I mean, how else you gonna know a business is open if they don't have a sign in front?
Yeah.
I think the idea is just that it's an addition to whatever their normal sign. So I mean, if we don't have some kind of limit on them being temporary, then we're just adding additional space to their regular sign, you know, allotment.
I guess
to clarify.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, to me, that doesn't have a lot of common sense to it. I mean, people need to be able to, I would, you know, I wish we could amend that for a little bit longer, maybe, you know, 30 days is not very much, and even twice a year at 30 days is, but I'm not trying to get into that, but it just seems very picky. You know, if we're trying to drum up business and help our merchants to be open and to be very, you know, vibrant and everything working, then let's tell people we're open, and as long as you need to until you get back to some kind of reasonable business. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, the temporary sign is a temporary sign, and it might advertise a sale. It might advertise the fact that they're open. We had this come up when I was attorney in Bluefield, and what the problem there was, it was some of these payday loan companies were putting 10 of these signs in front of their business. Now the mayor got mad and he said you couldn't have any of them. Now, whether that would stand up to the courts, I kind of told him I didn't think so. But, you know, we do see places where you have, we're having a sale, so we put up a sign for a sale, or we're having some other thing, because they are relatively inexpensive and easy to erect. So think about that also. I certainly understand the idea of hey, we're open sort of thing.
I guess the reason I'm asking is we're getting questions on council now if we can do a moratorium on this during the COVID pandemic, just so businesses can show that they're open and come in without them getting fines for being up for more than 30 days or so.
No, you'd have to change the zoning ordinance, which, I mean, now's the time to do that. If you would like to, if you all think that a different standard would be preferable, how many,
I mean,
how long are you thinking?
well, yeah, I don't know. We don't know how long COVID's going to last or whether things are going to shut down and people have to reopen. It's just too many unknowns. I got the phone call the other day about, I've seen these signs all over town, and then one business puts it up and 30 days after they do it, they get a complaint from somebody passing on DeWitt.
Mhm.
Everybody else's sign's still up, and his sign he's the one that gets called on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you just temporarily, suspend that and then see how 6 months from now, how things look. I mean, if these businesses are back open again and, they may not need those signs, then reenact it, reestablish it again.
And I guess I'm asking Luke, is that something that council can do if we wanted to suspend that, or is that not right?
No, we're actually bound, council's bound by the zoning ordinance. And so
Right.
they would have to put some provision in there that allowed you to suspend it. But you could just alter it now to be more permissive, revisit it later.
I would at least extend it to 45 days right at the moment to give businesses an opportunity to say, hey, we're open. And is there anything that prohibits us from saying that they can have more than 2 permits in a 12-month period?
Y'all can, we're changing the rules. You can make them what you want them to be. So that's what I'm fishing for is, I hear 45 days. Do I hear multiple, more than 2? We can alter this.
I'm like Bobby. I mean, we're in uncharted waters with the pandemic, and we certainly don't want businesses hanging up going to the business signs because they can't put a "we're open" sign up.
But Bobby, remember, it's all the temporary signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's what you're dealing with. So you've got,
Yeah.
and I'm not opposed to it, nor am I opposed to the sale signs that helps a business survive the pandemic.
Mhm.
But it would be all temporary signs.
Mhm.
Why does it have to be all temporary? Why can't you amend it to be?
Because that's what and then you run into the, what got the changes made,
Yeah.
because you're specifically applying it to a specific type sign within the category of the temporary signs.
So if we change this now, Luke, and let's say a year COVID's done and everything's back to normal, we can come back and revert it back, can't we?
Yeah, you'll just need to do a new text amendment. Yeah, if the general feeling is that it should be more permissive, I would just change it. And then if folks complain and we have pushback in the other direction,
Yeah.
again. But does everyone feel like it should be more permissive? Or?
I do, because I feel like the reason, if somebody says, why are you doing it? Then, it's to support, the best we can, the reopening the businesses during this COVID time. It's just reaching out, helping our merchants. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know about all the temporary signs, what that is, what those are, and what that would mean. But my concern is just supporting the merchants and getting the businesses back up and going, letting people know they're open. And then, like Bobby says, we can always revert it back after this crisis is over.
And I don't think we need to change the language where we're allowing more than 2 signs during a 12-month period. I think that everything below that is good. I think if we could just change the shall not display for more than 60 days.
Yeah.
They can get
Then
their
then you've got 120 total between your 2 permits in a year.
Yeah. So motion, can I do that? Or does it have to be in the form of a motion?
I think whenever you make the motion to, if you all can come to some
Just
agreement.
add that when we
you-
make the motion to accept the
Yeah.
amendment.
Okay, all right. Let me write this down so I don't forget it. I'm at that age.
And of course, Bobby, council can change. City council can, we make a recommendation, city council can make a change to it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
And
hopefully
if we can change the subsection A and make it like, let's say 60 days, we might
Mhm.
get council so that nothing will have to be changed.
And the fact of the matter is, I guess if it comes in a recommendation from us, it carries more weight with council.
hopefully their
Exactly.
hope is that you all have mined through the details and they don't have to. They have other things going on. As
Exactly.
Bobby says.
Now, I would ask Luke to do something, though, again, if we're recommending a change to that, get with the city attorney
Mhm.
Make sure it's
Yeah, we'll-
okay.
to
we'll
make
run it by
sure that
them.
we haven't messed up something else.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, that's just a change in terms of what your preference is.
Right.
There shouldn't be anything that affects the legality of it.
Okay.
Don't let her be surprised in front of city council.
Sure.
Okay?
No one was
I would-
more
I would do
surprised than I.
Okay,
Right.
so are we ready to open the public hearing on the amending the city code, chapter 98 zoning ordinance, articles 5.6 signs and 9.3 enforcement procedures and remedies? Officially open. Any comments?
Just a second. I'll put up again the number and the meeting ID. Y'all keep talking. Again, dial this number if you're watching on YouTube and you'd like to make a comment, and enter the meeting ID, and I will admit you to the meeting. Probably want to give people a minute or so in case anyone's watching.
I thought it would be like American Idol, lots of people would be calling in.
Well, I don't know
Dry
if
stuff.
I don't know if Luke's watching it, but I've got it up on my other screen on YouTube, and it's only 4 people there, and I'm one of them.
I don't have it up, so
Okay.
got to be at least 3 others. Oh wait, no, I do. I'll have to watch the recording. All right.
All right, I think we can safely say we have no commentary from the public. So we can close the public hearing on the amending city code, chapter 98 zoning ordinance, articles 5.6 signs and 9.3 enforcement procedures and remedies. And now can we have a motion to approve to recommend amending the city code, chapter 98 zoning ordinance, articles 5.6 signs and 9.3 enforcement and procedures and remedies, with Bobby's recommended change of the duration of the temporary signs to 60 days and maintaining permits twice a year, limited to twice a year.
And adding the provision that the attorney suggested for the illumination sign.
Yes,
Yes.
that's letter C. Yes. Does someone want to make a motion to approve it?
Motion to make those amendments.
I second it.
All in favor of recommending the amendment city code, chapter 98 zoning ordinance, articles 5.6 signs and 9.3 enforcement procedure and remedies, with the addition from the city attorney and Bobby's amendment about the duration of the temporary signs, say aye.
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 Everyone not in favor, say nay. Motion carries. So now we have a discussion on what areas to rezone to MXB and a resolution.
I think we've already mostly gone over this as well, but I was going to ask, it's technically fine. We can just advertise a public hearing ahead of time, but I think a close reading of our zoning ordinance suggests that you all would need to initiate the rezoning. And so I was just going to ask for a motion directing staff to initiate, to bring a rezoning application for.
I'll make such motion.
I'll second.
Everyone in favor of bringing the rezoning application before city council?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so are we good? Any other business?
No, I'd just like to give a shout out to Kira. I think she was
Mhm.
mentioned with the mural there by Waynesboro High School.
Oh,
Looks
yeah, that was
very
great.
Looks very nice. I'm not sure I understand it, but it looks nice.
Yeah, it was a fun project to work on.
I don't understand it either, but it was great to see the kids out there
Yeah.
working with that. I saw that the other day when you were doing it, and they seem to be having a good time.
Do you, by not understanding, do you say you don't understand the, oh, hi, Ace?
This is Ace.
Oh, hey, Ace.
Thank you.
Do you not understand the message that it's portraying or the purpose of the mural?
Is it a message or just, it looks pretty?
Yeah.
So the purpose behind it, it's called the Tactical Urbanism Project. So our purpose is that we're trying to make that intersection safer for pedestrians and bicyclists by slowing down traffic. So by putting the colors in the nice street mural, it kind of stands out in a way that motorists hopefully will slow down some, because they are now more aware of the space and are more attentive to potential students crossing the street. And we created temporary bulb outs too, that kind of create a sort of funneling effect that cause the cars to slow down as they take corners and turn onto Poplar Avenue or onto Main Street.
Okay. Oh, traffic calming.
It's traffic calming. Yeah.
Like it did in Charlottesville, extend the curbs out into the travel lane.
Yep. Yeah. And like we have downtown on our Main Street,
Yep.
Wayne and Main has bulb outs like that too. But it was fun. We had the high school student, the art department, as one of their class projects, they all designed a mural and then voted on 5. And then those 5 were taken to the community. And the Peace and Love one was the one that won the community support. And it's nice and colorful. We had a good number of community members come out and help paint it, which was good fun, kind of stuff I love.
Well,
I especially like that the big color was the Little Giants color.
Yep.
Yeah, we tried to get lots of purple.
It does look good.
What kind of paint did you put on there?
It's floor and enamel with like a grit in it, so it doesn't get too slippery when the dew comes.
Now, will it eventually wear off the road, Kara?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long. We're hoping that it'll last like a year or so, but it's all kind of a new project, so we're not quite sure how long it will last for.
You know, you might look. Go ahead, Bob.
Hopefully it'll be resistant to that salt brine that they put down on the streets to remove snow.
Yeah, hopefully. The paint type was recommended by an organization that kind of does this as their whole thing. And there's a pretty well-known mural that was on the street in Asheville, downtown Asheville, North Carolina. And it was the same kind of paint, and theirs lasted for a while. It was actually just barely paved over, actually like a month ago, but it was there for a year or 2.
Okay.
All right, so I think we can adjourn this. Can we adjourn?
I just quickly, so we received a major subdivision application for the Carflow Farm property, which is now called Creekwood Village. So that's a pretty significant application coming your way next month.
Okay.
And also, if we're bringing this rezoning, I would expect that to be pretty significant and probably invite a lot of public interest as well. So I don't know if that affects that makes it better to stay on Zoom or better to try to meet in person. But just so you're aware that those applications are coming, and if that affects you all's preferences at all. Put that out there.
I'm open to either Zoom or in person, Luke. I think City Council's been in person now for what, three months, Bobby?
For 3 sessions, yeah.
3 sessions.
Yeah.
So,
I think Lowry's still in favor of Zoom, but I don't know what everyone else's preferences are.
well, doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad I got a new computer today and it doesn't look like I'm peeping through a keyhole. Um,
I'm pretty impartial, Luke.
yeah.
Whatever you feel like is right to do, it's okay. Either way.
My next question would be if it's going to be that much public interest for both of them, should we do both of them in the same meeting or split the packages?
I don't know that it'll be so much that you couldn't do both.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's just 2 that I would expect there to be some comment on both of them.
Okay. Just curious.
It's more than our usual crowds, right?
We
Yeah, more
found
than the usual.
with our meetings, we found that when we went off of Zoom and went back into chambers, that we had more people coming and doing comment, participating than participating on Zoom.
I feel like with car flow, that's a big enough one that we've had enough vested interest in before. If more people will show up to meetings, then I think we should have an in-person meeting.
Yep. Yeah, I got
I
a
agree
feeling.
with that.
Yeah, I got a feeling you're gonna have all the neighboring neighborhoods in there trying to get in. Because how many can y'all seat, Bob?
Well, you're gonna seat 16 in there, but we can bring a deputy over that will screen, and if somebody makes comment, they can go out and another person can come in.
Okay.
But there's a deputy that comes in and he checks temperatures and makes sure that everybody is feeling well and answers the questions.
So then let's plan on doing in person
All
next
right.
time.
Hopefully there won't be a lot of folks coming out to speak against it, because really the rezoning was when the city had discretion, and that's when they
Right.
should have been speaking. I mean, now it's a
Yeah.
by right subdivision, so same thing as Quisenberry, but
Yeah.
people hear about it when they hear about it.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All right, so we will go live next time.
That's what I'm hearing from people.
All
Great.
righty.
I like seeing y'all.
Yeah.
All right, we'll work out the logistics of that and let you
Okay.
know.
Okay, well, so the meeting is of the Waynesboro Planning Commission for Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 is officially adjourned.
Yay.
Okay.
We are
Thank
done.
you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank
see
y'all.
y'all.
See ya.
Y'all have fun. Where's my little button at? Oh, there it is.